go into detail, and then we'll talk more about that, and I'll say a few more things. Okay, so here's one of you wrote about the Magritte painting. Okay, and said, as soon as I viewed the picture, my first observation was that the enlarged objects that in reality are small, um, I believe it talks about her personal values, and that's important. This person, you're going to get more out of the painting or out of a poem if you look at the title. So, les valeurs personnelles, the personal values, that's a clue to interpreting the painting, right? Each object can go deep into the meaning of life, which is why this picture is very different than any other reality photo. It's actually a painting, it's not a photo. I can make up a story out of this picture. I can say the woman that occupies the room can be described as a daydreamer or a believer that the sky is the limit from the view of her walls. Okay? So now notice how this writer is beginning to talk about what's in the painting, about the sky. So we're getting specifics about that. I can say that she most likely enjoys hygiene and taking care of her presence. Why? Because of the comb. Go ahead and say because of the comb. And now I guess some of you have identified that as soap. I couldn't tell what that round thing was. This thing right there, right there. I wasn't sure what that was. I guess it's a bar of soap. So it can also be said that she has a fiery side to her due to the match on the floor. Again, right? So she could be a smoker or maybe just loves nights by a fire. I like that. Yeah, that probably is a smoker. There is so much to this picture with minimal objects to see. I like it. So notice how we can tell that there's actual descriptive language in there that refers specifically to the actual painting. It's not just general comments. So if you read your responses or your posts and when you reread them, if you read them and so could someone reading this know what poem or what painting I was talking about? If they can't, that means you haven't put enough detail into your analysis. You haven't done enough description, and it's that description, that observation, that is going to yield even more to you. As you describe things, you're going to see things, okay, and then you're going to have things to talk about, more things to talk about. So that's what you do. You go to the text, whether it's a visual text or a printed text, and you look carefully and observe and talk about that. Let me give you a couple more examples. Okay, here's another one on the Magritte painting. Be looking at it. Are you all on page 60 and looking at the painting? The picture on page 60 is a work of literature. Yeah, I know it tells us that in the book. I don't know if I like calling paintings literature, but I see what they mean. Okay, because each item captured is placed in a specific spot for a specific reason. If it was a newspaper article, the intention of the picture would be to capture the main noun of the story, i.e. if there was a high-speed chase, then the picture might be of a car on a highway, or the suspect being detained after the police caught him. A natural picture would not have a picture of a comb that was probably used by the Jolly Green Giant standing on the bed. The size of the object and this is, I think, now this person's paying attention to the title. The size of the object in the pictures could be a representation of what they mean to the person. I don't think that's the only way to interpret it, but I think that's one reasonable way, right? That the size of the things tells us that those things are important in the person's head. So what we're getting here is not a picture of the literal outside bedroom. We're getting a picture of what's, maybe we are anyway, of how important things in the bedroom are to the person who lives in that bedroom. It's more like the mental space that aspects of the bedroom take up. If we were to look at it that way, then soap and wine glasses and maybe wine, it's empty though. So what does that mean? So take that for example. That's not in here. I'm just talking. But why is the wine glass empty? I don't know. But by talking about it, by mentioning the wine glass, by saying the word wine glass and looking at something where hey, why is the wine glass empty? So now what am I talking about? I'm talking about the thing that's there, and that's what you guys, most of you, need to do more of. Okay. But anyway, to go back to this one, the person that created it, by making some objects bigger, shows they have more of an importance. Yeah, I mean there might be another way to interpret it, and I'm open and go for it. But that certainly makes sense, and you can make a case for it. I'm not sure if that thing is on the top. Somebody said it was a makeup brush up on top of the cup, the cabinet, or whatever that is there. In a natural photograph or news story, object would be more often than not, everything in the image would be proportional. Okay, so moral of the story, pay attention, describe what you're looking at and let your ideas come from that. Get close. Don't stay far away from it and talk about what's actually in there and question it. So you could say things like, "Well, I see an empty wine glass," and then that leads to a question, doesn't it? Why is it empty? Here's another one. I see a comb. It's propped up on the bed. Why is the comb propped up on the bed? It's almost like the comb wants to sleep in the bed. I don't know, but that's a start, and then from there I can explore. So I love that match. That makes me think of the anecdote we were talking about earlier. Like she was a match, and if she looked at him, she would set him on fire. Um, I want to kind of talk about the relationship between those two. So I'm not sure. Okay, hold on. We're going to switch now to the poem. Hi there. Okay. So first of all, about poetry. You guys love poetry. You may not think you do, but you do. How many of you listen to music? All of us. Okay. And what are the lyrics to songs? They're poems. To tell you the truth, most lyrics to most pop songs suck if you actually look at the lyrics by themselves. But some are very good, and maybe you guys over time we can we can share some music lyrics. I'd like to share some with you, and you'd probably like to share some with me. That do reach the level of good poetry, that they are out there. But why? How do you get to know? When you first listen to a song, do you understand even? Do you even have in your head how the whole song goes, much less what the lyrics mean? Not really, right? Usually it takes several listens to a song, and slowly the song and the meaning and the words grow on you, right? And I'm sure we've all had the experience of listening to a song and going, yeah, but then we hear it again later, and we hear it again a third or fourth time, and then one time we listen to it and we go, damn, that is good. And poetry is the same way. It's just that we're not in the habit of playing poetry while we drive, so we don't have that experience. But you can create that experience. So what you want to do is, you want to. I'm getting up. I like to move around. What you want to do is you want to, read these poems several times and think about them and talk about them over and over again. So let's go ahead and read Tool. Everybody there on page 61. Of course, we say Tool now, we think, oh, he's a tool. I don't think it means that, but I could try. Okay, so I'll read it. If it's invented, it will be used, maybe not for some time. Then all at once, a hammer rises from under a lid and shakes off its cold family. Its one truth is stirring in its head. Order, order, saying, and a surprised nail leaps into darkness that a moment before had been nothing, waiting for the law. And here's what one of you wrote. Again, notice how this writer, one of your classmates, talks about specifics in the poem. What makes the poem Tool by W.S. Merwin? Very good habit there. Notice how the writer starts out by naming the poem, telling us who wrote it. As you write your papers, you want to do that. By the way, though, short things, the titles of short things go in quotation marks. The titles of long things go in italics, because most of what we're talking about here is short things. You're going to put the titles of most of them in quotation marks, okay? So here we go. First, its structure. In fact, some lines contain full sentences, whereas others have only one or two words. And that's something that could be looked at a little more detail, but that's fine, yeah. And it also doesn't have any punctuation. You could point out that there's no periods or commas or anything. So there's a lot of little details like that you could talk about as you look at it and show that it's different from prose, typed prose. Prose is not poetry, is the opposite of poetry. What's not poetry is prose, in case you didn't know that, okay? Second, the use of metaphors, since Merwin compares a tool to the law. All right,